Are you looking for ways to simplify and grow your business? Do you struggle with knowing where to focus your energy for the best return? Or are you loving your business success and looking to stay ahead of the pack through innovation and inspiration? If you've answered yes to any of the following, keep listening because today's episode is sure to inspire you. But before we get started today, I wanted to share with you my free Marketing on a Page template. This easy-to-use template will have you understanding exactly where your business is headed and the exact tactics and steps that you need to take in order to achieve your goals and your vision. Download it today from holisticvision.com.au/strategy or head to the show notes for the link. Now for today's episode. Hello, Jana. Welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here. I can't wait to dive into everything sales, or I don't know if we should be using the word sales, but, going around and removing that stigma associated with sales and thinking that it's a sleazy process. I'm really interested to hear more about how to sell with authenticity. So, on that note, Jana, I'd love for you to tell us how you got into becoming known as the intuitive coach and what that means.
Oh, thank you so much, Amita, for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here to serve your community. And yes, let's dig into, I wish it was a 4-letter word, but it's a 5-letter word. Sales. So, to back up, it's an interesting story. I actually was in sales as a top performing sales executive for over 20 years. But what I realized, and in fact, I realized it even more so as I became a coach in the last several years, is how differently I approach the sales process than my peers. And what I realized over time is the biggest point of being nervous or anxiety for no matter what company I work for, any product, is when somebody would come and ride with me, whether it was my manager, another colleague, or somebody from upper management. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to fake it. What was the message? How was I supposed to say it? Because I really had a different way of approaching my customers. And the funny thing is, it was really just based on sheer human values. Go figure. I actually cared. I actually listened. I actually wanted to connect with them just as another human being. And somehow I really learned, I followed my intuition, even though back then I didn't even really know what it was. I wasn't taught, about following your intuition. I didn't know a ton about that. I was an intellectual, right? I double majored in biology and chemistry in school, and then I got into sales. So it was all about, thinking through a process. But somehow I really found myself listening to my intuition, and it always steered me well. It served me well, but more importantly, it served my clients. And so that was the cornerstone of why I was so successful, year after year, company after company, product after product, even territory after territory. And so then several years ago, I'm not really sure how it all came to be, but speaking of listening to your intuition, I was driving down the road. I was actually listening to Deepak Chopra. And he has a book called I think it's the 7 Habits of Spiritual Success, or the 7 Laws of Spirit, something along those lines. I'm butchering it. I apologize. But the last one was Do and Live Your Purpose. And so I'm driving, and I think I was number 2 in the nation at that point, about to go on another, we get awarded trips, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was going, I'm like, check. Done. I'm so fortunate. And then there was this other voice that said, are you sure about that? Just sort of out of nowhere, not audible, but I just had that sort of feeling.
Yeah, that feeling.
So that began an entire different intuitive self-discovery process for me. So I've spent the last 7 years in the meditation space, in the mindfulness space, in the developing more of that connection to myself and certifying to different types of coaching programs so that I could bring that to others. So that's really what became my passion. And so to bring it all full circle, when I decided to coach full time, there was a big part of me, maybe you can relate, or somebody in your audience, where it was like, well, do I do this mindfulness thing and the meditation and the inner work piece and mindset? Or do I do what a lot of people would say, which is, what are you naturally good at? What are you, what is just that thing that you're best at that you don't even know how you do it, right? It's your thing. And so I toyed and, took my own advice and went within. But I have to say, it was a coach that told me, do both. There's hardly anything out there more than sales that brings up your stuff, right? So this gives you the opportunity to work with them on their mindset, rejection and self-worth and all of this confidence and these things that come up during the sales process. But you can also teach them how to do it in the way that you found over 2 decades, where you never had to be pushy. You never felt like, you were there it wasn't about you. It was really about getting to know that person. And
the dog. That's okay.
I put notes on the door and everything. I'm sure there's plenty of moms out there that can relate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for mine to start.
So point being, it all came together really beautifully, as things do, right? When we sort of surrender and trust. So that's a little bit about my background and how it all came together.
Yeah. Look, and that's a beautiful background, to have realized that while you were in sales and you were performing so well for all of those years, that you were doing it from being very mindful of the other person on the other side and really listening in on what it was that they wanted, rather than being pushy and forcing somebody to just buy something for the sake of buying it. And I think that that's, a big lesson that we can all learn from. So thank you for sharing your journey. I wanted to ask as well, when we're talking about sales, a lot of us find it difficult there's a lot of fear. There's a fear of, being judged, of being turned down, of coming across as pushy, and you've talked about listening to your intuition and listening to what that other person really needs. In your work as both a coach and being in sales for so long, what have you noticed with coaches more specifically is their biggest challenges around this?
You really hit the nail on the head. The biggest thing I see people have a tough time with is really just asking for the business. Putting themselves in that position to have somebody reject them, right? And more importantly, the meaning that they're giving that. So, we all have had to tell somebody no at one point or another, right? And if you look back and you reflect on those times, 99% of those times, it really has nothing to do with that person and their offering, right? It's so much more about timing. Yeah. It's about the mindset and the space that you're in that moment. It's about where you are in your business. It really isn't about them, but the human mind has this wonderful way of making it about us to throw people for a loop. And so, that's really one of the first things I talk about with my clients is, all right, I want you to put yourself in that space, because I know you can give a gorgeous presentation, right? It's your passion. You eat, breathe, and live whatever it is that you do. So it's not that piece, but I want you to put yourself in that part where you've wrapped that part. And now you're going to ask them, Amita, so what do you think of what I've had to say here today? How do you feel about working with me? And what's coming up. And so we really dive deep into that and journal about, what thoughts, like what are you attaching to that question? And that's the biggest part where people get hung up.
Yeah. Shifting that mindset and getting into the right headspace with regards to that. That makes sense. And I think we all definitely need, some extra support with that and breaking down those barriers and reconnecting with that. I love the sound of, journaling your thoughts around what's happening when you are asking for that sale, what's coming up for you, that I can see would add a lot of insight in terms of being able to break through those barriers, and we're in business. So business means that we're here to make a profit, and therefore to make a profit means we have to make a sale. And we're not doing this as a hobby, and as much as we are healers, coaches, we want to be helping people, we can't do that for free. There has to be that exchange, correct? So when we're looking at that from a sales perspective, are there any techniques or tips that you could share in terms of the sales process that could help people to make it feel more authentic?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is to set your intention before the call, to connect with yourself and ground yourself and just take a moment to center into what you're really doing here. And as much as you can, removing yourself and all that entails, your ego, whatever you want to call that part of you that likes to chime in with a bunch of fear. And just sort of the way I explain it is, I'm just going to put you up on the shelf, like a book. So that my intention here is to connect with this person, to listen, not just with my ears, but with my whole being to what they're saying, their words, but more importantly, what's underneath those words. And the very best way to do that is to ask really good questions. So if there's one thing I would offer up is you want to be asking, probably your entire actual sales presentation is 3 or 4 minutes. And the rest of the time you are spending on questions with them, getting to know them. And even I call them double clicking questions. So they say a little bit and it's, tell me more about that. Why do you think that is? Because you're going really deep. And what I like to say is, there's a beautiful phrase called a discovery call. But I think somebody came up with it cleverly to hide the fact that it's a sales call. But what I would say is set the intention to it for it to really be a discovery call. And when you can approach it more from that standpoint, everything just flows. And that's what you want. You want the freedom. You want to offer up the freedom and authenticity of you so that they feel the freedom and authenticity to be them, like that permission. You create that safe space. And when you approach it as a discovery call and not a sales call, the energy shifts completely.
That makes so much sense. I love what you said in terms of asking more questions, because yes, redefining what a discovery call really is. I think we need to remind ourselves of that we are here to get to know each other and build a relationship. And by asking those relevant questions and listening as well, right? Asking the question, but actually really listening and reflecting back, you would be able to really understand how you could serve that person to the best of your abilities, and know too if what you are offering them is the right match. Do you find that that's important as well, like to identify, well, okay, we're going through this discovery call, but I don't feel that there is the right connection here. What do you do in that situation?
That is such an amazing, thank you for making that distinction, because it is such an important point, because it is a discovery call for both people. Coaching and, service-based healers, those spaces are very intimate, right? In terms of what you're going to be doing together. So if it's not the right fit in both ways, you're both auditioning, for lack of a better word, for each other. And, to create that type of connection and that bond. And it's okay when it's not there too. That just means that it's not the right fit. It's nothing personal. And, if I'm not here to serve all 7.5 billion people on the planet, neither are you. We have the people that what I'm saying, what you're saying will resonate with, and they will say, yes, like, where do I sign? This is absolutely meant for me. I've definitely had that experience with people. I'm sure you have as well. And so it doesn't, I wish there was a new word for sales, right? Because really it's just opening it up to, we can say yes or no, and just really setting that intention even early on in the call that this is a place where we can, you can say yes or no. There's no pressure here. It is all about asking permission.
Yeah. Asking permission. I like that. And I think that, as coaches, as service-based businesses, as anybody that is there to make a sale, if we realize that it is about both sides, and if you don't feel right about it, that's okay too, and to honor that intuition as well. Because I know, personally, I've had experiences in the past with businesses where I felt that, okay, this person is here, they want my help, they've made that appointment, they've made that commitment, they've paid me, but I don't feel like I'm the right person. I don't feel that we're connecting. I don't feel that we're resonating. And therefore, I've had to find ways of getting out of that situation. And that's, it can be really tricky sometimes. You feel like you're meant to be here to serve. And like you said, we can't serve 7 billion people. There's those specific set of people that our message is going to resonate with. And I know that myself and clients that I've worked with have felt even uncomfortable on the other side of saying, okay, no, look, I understand what you're saying. I hear you, but I'm just not the person for you. So it seems, that there's trouble with a mindset of asking for the sale, but also trouble from a mindset perspective of saying, or of feeling okay with saying no to that person, and also then, sharing with them maybe somebody else, referring them on to somebody else that might be a better fit.
I think you brought up something that I think it really has to do with this modern society that we live in, where everybody's sort of masked up, right? And so it's really difficult to be honest. And so that's really what this is about for myself, and a lot of people in the entrepreneurial community, is just being honest and just speaking from your heart, right? And there's such a huge place for that has gone that's how we ended up with such a crappy sales process in the first place, is because people just weren't about being honest and speaking direct and being, open with each other. And I'm just here to say that there is that way to do it, and it can be that honest and that authentic. And the more willing you are to go there and to be that way, the more willing that person will be as well. Because to your point, sharing, oh gosh, now I'm in a situation. Most of the time, that, right? When you're on that discovery call and people, I got it, I need to make that sale, money, you got to take that in, detach from that outcome, because follow this person down the road that you pressured or convinced to work with you. It's probably they're not going to be one of your raving fans. They're not going to be sending you a bunch of referrals. They may not even do the work, and they could potentially even be the one that asks for a refund or whatever it may be, and you knew that. So why not honor that part of you that told you that early on, and the same for them. And so just being open and honest and letting the other person be the same and not taking that personally, right?
Yes, exactly. Don't take it personally. I think that we need to stick that on a note, on our computers when we're having those calls, to remind ourselves, it's not about me. It's about connecting and being there for that person, and realizing, am I the person that's going to help them to transform their lives, to allow them to take that step that they really need to in their journey. And yeah, if that's not me, that's okay. But I've learned something great about this person. And, the way that you said that if it isn't the right person, if it isn't the right fit, yes, most likely they're not going to become a raving fan. And oftentimes, and I've experienced this too, where they will be the ones that will just make it really difficult because they're not committed. They don't feel aligned. And it feels like a chore from both sides, right? So you're right in terms of being able to honor the process and honor both of yous and realize that it isn't about you. And it's not even, like you said, about making the sale. It's not about just the dollar signs, right? It's about taking somebody on a journey with you. I wanted to ask, though, when, for a good sales call or discovery call, should I call it? If we were a coach, speaking to a potential client, I know that you mentioned ask lots of questions. What else? What would it sound like having that call with somebody?
So I go through the anatomy of a sales call in my program. And what that includes is it's a step-by-step process. And so you have a framework that you want to follow, right? You don't just want to get on the call and like you're going to have dinner with your girlfriends and you're just all over the place, right? So, there is a framework to follow. And really the way that works is you first connect. And you just find some common ground, right? Say they get on the phone call and they're like, oh, my kid. I'm like, I have kids too, and you just start to open up that conversation. And then you move into more of, here's the intention of this call. I'm here to serve you in A, B, and C. And so it's going to last X amount of time, just so that you set yourself up as, I'm going to lead this call, right? In this potential way, it sets you up as the expert, right? But once you've made that connection, the human connection is really important. And then they honor that, and then you take them through. And so the first part is really about, what are your goals? Where are you at now? Where would you like to be? What do you think is standing in your way? What have you tried? And more importantly, in all of that kind of stuff is, why do you think that is? What do you think is holding you back? So you really get a great idea of where they are, what they've tried, what they feel is holding them back. And that's the bulk of the call, is just understanding their needs. It's very, very important. And, a lot of people understand them a little bit, mostly wait to talk and then tell them about their program. But it's really important that you spend a lot of time here and you're empathizing and you're hearing them. And, like I said before, not just what they're saying, but what's underneath those words. So this is really the best way I likened it to with my clients is this is a coaching. You are coaching them. So it's a coaching session. And so you're helping them through that and giving them some pearls of wisdom, right, along the way. And maybe it's very effective in that. Well, I actually had a client who, for example, was in your shoes and, giving them not just where they are, but the vision of where they could be, right? And that you have worked with people. So you're not just waiting until the end to sell them. All along the way, you're talking, you're relating, you're talking about other clients that you have helped in those situations and what they were able to do. So that, because really what you're trying to do is you're creating a vision for them that you believe wholeheartedly as the coach. The two most important things is you have to have confidence in you and your abilities, and you have to have confidence in their abilities to get the results that they want. And what you want to do in this session is to help them believe in themselves that they can have what they want. And so that's really, people are like, well, find out where they are and ask them questions. But what you're really trying to do is get them to see what you see in them. Right. And that you can, because you've seen it before and you've seen where you've been able to take them. So that's the biggest piece. And then you're going into, okay, based on what you've shared, and you repeat and make sure that you understand and that they agree, yes, that's exactly how they feel and what they've experienced. And then so that's the diagnosing stage, right? And you're repeating it back to them. And then you write the prescription based on what you shared, based on this, based on other clients that I've helped in the past. This is what I would recommend. Yeah. Do you mind if I share it with you? So all along the way, you're asking them permission too, so that they have control. So it's just very important that it's not just this hammering them with all of these things, and that it's more of a dialogue, but even more so, they're speaking 75% of the time, maybe even 80%. And so when you weave it in that way and you coach them along the way, and they have a few epiphanies along the way, and by the end, they are seeing the vision that you have for them. Now you tell them how you can help them get there. The biggest part, this part that scares everybody so much, the close, just becomes as simple as, well, Amita, we've shared a lot of information together here today. I just appreciate you being so open and honest. And, I've shared with you how I've helped other people just like you get from where you are to where you want to be. So, what do you think? How does it sound? Do you want to give this a go? I mean, it's that casual.
That easy. Wow.
And so I think the biggest thing, like we were talking about before the call, is just the mindset piece, and us as coaches, as healers, as service-based entrepreneurs, just getting out of our own way, right? And not making this harder than it needs to be. Because the dreaded close or the asking for the business, if I had $1 for every time, can you just give me like a really good way to ask for the business? It has nothing to do with that. No. It's like teeing it up in such a way that it is just like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Not all this so
hyped up
based on everything that I've shared, and all of, it just becomes ingenuine and sincere, and people pick up on that. So my offering a lot is make it as conversational and as natural as it would be talking to a friend, but following the framework as you
the
go.
Framework. Yeah. Okay. And that, I think, helps to know that there is a framework to follow, and that there are steps that you need to take in order to make that feel natural and allow you to step out of being in your head and, and get into that heart space. So you're really connecting. I do love that there's a framework. I think I love frameworks. I love processes. So that's, that's something I always want. To me, it just makes sense that I can follow something and that it's not just all airy fairy, these fluffy words, that there's a basis. And I know that, over the years, you've done so much in terms of NLP and your meditation courses and all your sales training, etc. And it's great that, I can see that you've brought all of that together and all your experience to put this framework together so that it is something that feels right. It feels like it connects with the heart, and it feels like it's definitely going to give people that confidence to go out there and have better discovery calls, better relationships with their clients as well. So thank you for putting that together. I know that so many people are going to get value from that. But before we end it, I wanted to ask you as well, because I know you've got this amazing Facebook group that you out there, and I've gotten so much value already from what I've learned from there, from all your tips. Is this something anybody can join? And if so, how do they get on board?
It's called Client Conversations That Convert. So that's definitely a place there. I go live once a week on Wednesdays. This group is very interactive in the sense that I'm just not throwing up random stuff. I'm coming with, in fact, I almost did a live right before this, and I'm going to do one. I have another podcast tomorrow. I ran out of time. How it goes. But to say, are you prepared for a podcast? Like, do you know, and so I really try to ask questions in the group to get, I wasn't prepared a year ago. I didn't know. And so is that what's standing in your way, right? Back to the mindset stuff. Like if somebody came and said, be on my podcast, are you ready to go? And do you know what you need to send them? Do you know what kind of questions you need to be prepared for? And just, so yes, it's about sales tips, and it's about having those natural conversations and mindset. But I also really want to make sure that I'm interacting with the group and giving them what they need. And so what I do in that sense is, what have I needed, right? Not just in the sales space, but I wish somebody would have told me a year ago, like, here's what you need. And that way, when anybody approaches you about a podcast, you're ready. It's not oh God, I got to, get all this stuff together. So, so keeping
Fantastic.
it real world in the sales space, but also as an entrepreneur, as I go through things, I like to keep it authentic and real and just, hey, does anybody need this? Because I have it. So just, let me know and I can send it to you. And then the other piece of that is, other than the things that I've had to go through along the way, but also taking questions, or the biggest questions I get from my clients, maybe it's around objection handling, or how much do I charge? Or, things around, I have to talk to my spouse or my partner, so we cover a lot of those bases as well. But that's something that I really want to make it serving in multiple ways, because you don't know what you don't know until you get there. And I want to help people get there as fast as they can, and not have things like, oh, I want to be on this podcast, but I'm not prepared. So it's a little bit of that as well. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, because, like you said, it's not just about the sales. You're sharing your tips that you've found have been useful for you in your journey as an entrepreneur, and definitely those are things that when you're starting off or changing careers as well, and there's so many unknowns. And like you said, you don't know what you don't know. So if you can at least start having those conversations out there and putting them in a space that feels also authentic but safe to have a conversation about it, then that's fantastic. So thank you for putting the group together as well. And I will put the link in the show notes. And I just wanted to say, Jana, thank you again for being on the podcast. It's been really insightful. I know that I've got so much that I want to start implementing with my sales process, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your framework as well.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Amita. It was such a pleasure to serve your community. And one last thing I will say, if you like that framework so much, I'm in the process right now of putting together a clients' conversations that convert cheat sheet of the framework, the anatomy of the sales call. So if that's something that you would like or your audience would like, it will be there in that Facebook group very soon.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll definitely make sure that I put that Facebook group link down there, and I'll put all your social media links there as well so people can follow you and get in contact. So thank you again, Jana.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening today. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you find value from today's episode. And remember, if you've got friends and colleagues looking for inspiration as they grow their business, share this podcast with them. Follow me on Instagram at Holistic Vision Consultancy, or check out my website, holisticvision.com.au. Until next week, to your success, my friend.